you're like me and were super pumped for Taika Waititi directing Thor Ragnarok, then you definitely saw it last opening weekend. And if you're like me, you were really into Tessa Thompson's character Valkyrie, because I'm biased fuck. But also because she's like a really cool character and Tessa Thompson gives a great performance. Also that. I'm also low-key trash, but we're not even gonna touch that. We're not. Before the movie came out, I saw a ton of articles exclaiming that Valkyrie is bisexual. Obviously, there was a lot of hype around this because there have been 17 films in the MCU and not a single one has featured an explicitly LGBTQ character. Of course, I assumed it was like all of the clickbaity articles that came out when Finding Dory featured a lesbian couple for like half a second, or how LeFou danced with a man for 3 seconds on camera in Beauty and the Beast. But spoiler alert, Thor had even less than that, which I didn't think was possible. So there's this huge interview in Rolling Stone with Tessa Thompson where she talks about having to fight for bisexual representation. Thompson even summoned the courage to pitch Waititi on making Valkyrie bisexual based on her comic book relationship with anthropologist Annabelle Riggs. There's this great illustration of them in a kiss, swoons Thompson. She convinced Waititi to shoot a glimpse of a woman walking out of Valkyrie's bedroom. He kept it in the film as long as he could. Eventually the bit had to be cut because it distracted from the scene's vital exposition. So instead of a full scene that alludes to Valkyrie's sexuality, we get a kind of blink and you missed it flashback scene that could vaguely be interpreted as bisexual, but only if you really stretch it. In this scene, Valkyrie is fighting Hela with her other Valkyries. I don't really know how Marvel picked this naming system because that was not her name in the book, but she's just Valkyrie now in the MCU. It's a little confusing, but you know this is a tangent. All of the other Valkyries are being murdered, and then Valkyrie sees a particular Valkyrie that she has some sort of attachment to, and she's really upset about it. And it could be interpreted as her girlfriend or partner or whatever, but it's not really made clear. According to Tessa Thompson's interpretation of the scene, there were things that we talked about that we allowed to exist in the characterization, but maybe not be explicit in the film. There's a great shot of me falling back from one of my sisters who's just been slain. In my mind, that was my lover. In an interview with Taika Waititi, he explains more in depth why he made the decision that he did. We had talked about it. There was one moment that didn't make it into the film where she was hanging out with a girl. If you were to read into that, you can see that in her flashback. There is a girl there, and maybe perhaps there's something there that was her girlfriend. Who knows? We tried to make sure it wasn't super specific or that we were trying to say, she's a lesbian, she's bi. We really gotta get everyone on board with this. It's more like, look, if you want to read anything into that, you can make sense of it in parts of the film. I know that she had that and she was using that in her process and stuff, and I'm totally supportive of that. Why not? I think that interview perfectly sums up the issue of explicit representation versus implicit representation. With explicit representation, there's no room for, well, maybe she's straight, maybe she's a lesbian, maybe she's bi. This is more an issue of implicit representation where you don't want to explicitly make a stand and potentially alienate homophobic audiences, but also you kind of still want to get cookies for maybe having a bisexual character, but who really knows? I do understand that in this context, it wouldn't make sense to just throw this scene in and maybe slow down the narrative just to have this one scene that doesn't really do much for the plot. I get that. And to be honest, if that scene was randomly included, it might have felt like pandering to the audience. So probably maybe better that they didn't include it. I don't know. I haven't seen the scene. Refreshingly, there aren't really any romantic subplots in Thor. So it does make sense that none of the characters' sexualities are really talked about or shown in detail. Although Thor did make a passing comment explaining Natalie Portman's absence in the film, aka Natalie Portman probably just didn't feel like being in the fucking series anymore. I don't blame her. This was eerily familiar to that one scene in Wonder Woman that was kinda gay, but was it? Who knows? There's a quote from the Collider that I think summed up this whole issue really well. Unfortunately, this comes on the heels of Hollywood dancing around the issue of LGBTQ representation in major films like Beauty and the Beast, trying to pat themselves on the back for queer representation while not really actually doing the thing. Again, it's a fine line to walk between representation and tokenism, but if we can find various ways to allude to the sex life of Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Thor, and even Hulk, then surely there's an organic LGBTQ moment to be found in the ever-expanding MCU. So what do you guys think? Do you think this counts as representation or not so much? I personally think not so much, but I'm excited about the possibility of maybe there being more representation in the future. Maybe one day Marvel can finally throw me a fucking bisexual bone, because I've earned it, you know? I've worked for this. I deserve these nice bisexual things once in a while. I want to thank the upcoming film The Breadwinner for sponsoring this video. The Breadwinner is an animated film about an 11-year-old girl named Parvana growing up in Afghanistan in 2001 under Taliban rule. When her father is wrongfully arrested, Parvana cuts off all her hair and begins dressing like a boy in order to help support her family. I just want to say that this film was super beautiful. I watched it with my boyfriend last night and he definitely cried. A lot. No joke, when I asked him what he thought about it, he said it was in his top 2 movies that he'd seen all year, and he's like a huge film nerd, so he takes his rankings very seriously. The Breadwinner was put out by the same studio that did The Secret Life of Kells and Song of the Sea, which I believe were both nominated for Academy Awards. I also would not be surprised if this was nominated as well because it's very good and very sad. It's very, very sad. I think this movie is really important because it deals with a lot of complex issues like sexism and violence and war, and it's definitely not a light movie. It's very heavy, very intense. So definitely go check The Breadwinner out. It will be in select theaters on November 17th. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, subscribe to this channel, and click the notification bell for more videos like this one. Also, if you'd like to help support my work and this channel, then please consider donating to my Patreon page, which will be linked below. It's got a lot of cool perks such as secret videos, a newsletter, and even a monthly feminist book club, so definitely check it out.